There was a man in my attic. True horror story. I used to laugh at people who said they felt watched. Like, how would you even know that, right? But that changed when I found these tiny drill holes above my bed. And then I realized someone had been living in my attic, watching me sleep every single night. The scariest part? He might have still been up there when I called the cops. This happened when I was 25. I'm a woman, and at the time I had just moved into a small house in upstate New York. It had been my aunt's, but after she passed, she left it to me. Quaint, older, 2 bedrooms, kind of creaky, but charming in its own way. I'd never lived alone before. Always had roommates, dorm mates, or family around. So honestly, the idea of having my own place sounded like peace. I work remotely, so I didn't really go out much. Just groceries, gym, an occasional Target run. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. A little quiet maybe, but nothing weird. Then small things started happening. I'd open the fridge and notice one of my yogurts was gone, or a banana peel would be in the trash, even though I didn't remember eating one. I assumed I was just forgetting stuff, maybe eating without thinking while working. But then it got weirder. I had this little spice jar that I know I used maybe once. A week later, it was half empty. I found an old coffee mug on the kitchen counter that wasn't mine. My first thought was that I must have overlooked stuff left behind by my aunt, but something about it didn't sit right. Then I started waking up feeling weird. Not scared exactly, but uneasy, like there was a shift in the air, like I was being stared at. I chalked it up to stress. You know, working too much, living alone. Maybe I was getting paranoid. But that feeling, that cold, uncomfortable pressure, I felt it every morning, stronger each time. Things escalated one night around 2 a.m. I was in bed watching sights of horror on my laptop, headphones in. I paused the episode to get up and pee. When I took off my headphones, I heard something, creaking, very soft, not from the hallway, from above me. I froze. It sounded like footsteps, slow ones, like someone trying not to make noise on an old wooden floor. I stood there, heart pounding, holding my breath. I told myself it was just the house settling, or maybe an animal had gotten into the attic. But something about the rhythm, it felt too much human, controlled. Like whoever or whatever was up there knew I was listening. I grabbed the broom from the corner and tiptoed out to the hallway. The attic entrance was in the ceiling above the second bedroom. I hadn't even been up there yet. I pulled the ladder down slowly. It creaked like hell. When I poked my head up with my phone flashlight, the smell hit me immediately. Sweat, old food, stale air. I gagged. The beam swept across the attic. Dust, insulation, some old furniture, and in the far corner in a pile of blankets, fast food wrappers, a backpack. Someone was living or had been living up there. I panicked. Slammed the attic door shut, ran downstairs, grabbed my shoes, and bolted outside to the driveway. Called the cops shaking so bad I could barely type in my passcode. They arrived within 5 minutes. They went through the house top to bottom. The guy wasn't there, but they found what he left behind, and what they told me afterwards still messes with my head. There was a jug up there, filled with piss, food wrappers, a blanket that looked like it hadn't been washed in years. The backpack had men's clothes, deodorant, rope, tape, and a hunting knife. But the worst part was the floor. There were tiny round holes drilled between the floorboards of the attic, directly above my bedroom, lined up perfectly above where my bed sits. He'd been watching me every single night. And here's the thing. I sleep without clothes. Always have. That detail hit me like a punch in the gut. I couldn't stop picturing him just lying up there, listening, peeking, and doing who knows what else. The cops were disturbed too. One of them asked if I'd noticed anything moved or missing from around the house. I said yes, some small stuff. Food and some clothing went missing. He looked at me and said, "You're lucky he didn't come down." I still remember those words. You're lucky he didn't come down. They dusted the attic and backpack for prints, but the guy hadn't left any ID. Nothing with a name on it or anything to identify him. Nothing. Just clothes, food wrappers, a knife, rope, tape, and a front row seat to my life. They never caught him. I had the locks changed, installed cameras, slept with every light on for weeks. But here's what still haunts me. When they reviewed the attic setup, they said there were signs of him climbing down at night. Dust and dirt around the attic entrance was smeared where he went in and out the attic to the main part of the house. I never heard a thing. The officer guessed he'd been going in and out of the attic for a while, maybe even standing over me while I slept. Maybe sneaking out of the house while I was in the bathroom, watching from a dark corner while I cooked. There's no way to know. And I still don't know how long he was up there. Weeks? Months? Was he living there before I moved in? Or did he sneak in afterward? Worse yet, what if he had a key? I moved out a few months later, turning the house into a rental. Even after months, I still wake up sometimes thinking I hear creaking above me. But what really keeps me up? Sometimes I wonder if he ever left. And sometimes I swear I still hear footsteps above me to this day. You've made it to the end, but would you have survived? Let me know in the comments. And if this story had you checking your attic, go ahead and subscribe for more terrifying tales from sites of horror. The Masked Visitor, My Night of Terror True Story. I was 17 when it happened. My parents were out of town, and I had the whole house to myself. It was just past 10 p.m. when someone rang the doorbell. Not once, not twice, over and over, like they were trying to wear down my nerves. When I finally looked outside, there was a man in a black ski mask, standing still, silent, and then he moved toward the window, with no blinds. It was a Friday night, and I remember it so clearly, because I was finally getting a break from everything. School, chores, just people. My parents had gone out of town for the weekend, and they trusted me to hold down the house. No parties, no drama, just me, snacks, and a couple of all-nighters on my console. I was down in the basement playing online. Headset on, lights off, just the glow of the screen lighting up the room. That kind of peace where you lose track of time. Then out of nowhere, ding-dong. At first I thought maybe it was just a sound from the game, but then it rang again and again, 4, maybe 5 times in a row. Fast, too fast. I paused the game and took off my headset. Everything upstairs was quiet, no footsteps, no voices. It was 10:12 p.m. I remember glancing at the digital clock on the microwave when I came up. Our porch light wasn't on, so I flipped it and walked slowly to the front door. I didn't open it, I just looked through the peephole. There was a man, just standing there. He wasn't moving, not knocking, not saying anything. He was dressed in all black, jacket, gloves, boots, and he had on a black ski mask. Not the kind with goofy cartoon stuff or for the cold. I mean the kind you wear when you're trying not to be recognized. No logos, no color, no reason for him to be there. I didn't even breathe. I just stared. Then, without warning, he took 2 steps backward and turned his head toward the front window. That window doesn't have blinds. And in that moment, I dropped down to the floor and crawled back into the hallway. My heart was slamming in my chest. I grabbed my phone and called 911. I was whispering to the dispatcher, trying to stay quiet. Then I heard it. The doorknob jiggled, then shook harder. Then came the banging. loud, violent, like he didn't care anymore about being subtle. The dispatcher told me to lock myself somewhere safe. I went upstairs and hid in the bathroom, locked the door, and sat in the tub, with a towel pulled over me like that would somehow protect me. She stayed on the line the whole time. I heard the sirens after what felt like a lifetime, but the dispatcher said it had only been 7 minutes. I didn't hear the man anymore. No footsteps, no doors, nothing. The cops came in with flashlights and cleared the house. He was gone. But here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. They checked the security camera above the garage. We don't have any others, just the one pointing at the driveway and front path. The footage showed him walking up at 10:06 p.m., wearing that same black outfit. But in his hand, he was holding a cordless drill, one of those small handheld ones. The officer said they'd seen it before, people trying to remove door hinges silently, or even screw open deadbolts if they know what kind of lock you've got. He never rang the doorbell with his finger. He pressed it with the drill bit, over and over, the sound of metal hitting plastic. Not his hands, no prints, no real contact. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, or the next. I sat on the couch with every light in the house turned on, watching the front door. I kept wondering, what if I hadn't gone upstairs? What if I hadn't turned on the porch light? What if I hadn't answered the doorbell at all? The next day, one of the officers came back with a still frame from the footage. He showed it to me and asked if I noticed anything weird. At first, it looked like the same image I remembered, just a tall guy in black walking up. But when I looked closer, something in my chest dropped. He was already wearing gloves when he arrived, but sticking out of his back pocket, almost too casually, was what looked like a roll of duct tape. Next to it, in the zoomed-in photo, was a plastic zip tie. Not the long kind, the short, thick ones. The kind you can't break once they're on. I didn't need the cop to explain what he thought was going to happen. They never found him. No fingerprints, no shoe prints, nothing. All they could do was increase patrols around the neighborhood for a while. My parents installed a full security system when they got back. Cameras on every corner, floodlights, sensors, alarms. But I still don't feel safe. Not really. Because here's what haunts me. He never spoke, never looked at the camera, never knocked, just stared and waited. And I still wonder, how many other houses did he try before mine? Or worse, how many has he gotten into? And every time I hear a knock at night now, I still check the doorknob first, just to make sure it's not turning. Real horror doesn't need monsters, just people. What did you find the creepiest in this story? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more twisted, true horror stories from Sites of Horror. He Watched Me from the Trees, True Creepy Wood Story. This happened when I was 29. I live alone, and I've always loved the privacy my house offers, especially with the woods right behind it. But last winter, I woke up around 1 a.m. to my dog growling at the window. I looked out and saw a man standing just inside the tree line, not moving, not saying anything, just watching, and that was only the beginning. This all happened in a quiet neighborhood just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a freelance graphic designer, so I spend most days at home. I like things calm, predictable. The area I live in is mostly older couples, families with kids, and a few single folks like me. My house is one story, nothing fancy, but it's mine. The backyard backs up to this dense patch of trees, almost like a mini forest. No fences, just trees. When I first moved in, I loved the seclusion. It made me feel like I had my own little corner of peace. But that feeling didn't last. It started with little things. The side gate would be open when I knew I had latched it. It's an old wooden gate with one of those rusty metal hooks. I always made sure to close it because of my dog Bishop. He's a little terrier mix, loud as hell but harmless. At first I blamed the wind, then maybe a neighbor kid, but it kept happening. like every couple of days. Then my trash bins were moved, not knocked over, moved. Once I found both of them all the way behind the house near the tree line. I live alone. Nobody has access to my yard, and Bishop would have barked his head off if someone came close. I started to feel weird about it, not scared, just unsettled, like something wasn't adding up. So I went to a hardware store and bought one of those cheap motion-activated lights. I installed it right above the back patio. It wasn't top of the line or anything, but I figured if anything moved back there, I'd know. That same night, literally the night I put it up, something happened. It was around 1 in the morning. I was in bed scrolling on my phone. Bishop was asleep at my feet. Suddenly he growled, not his usual yappy bark, a deep, low growl. I sat up. He was facing the window, ears perked, completely still. Then I heard it, crunching leaves, heavy, measured. Footsteps. I froze. My bedroom faces the backyard. I turned off the lamp and crawled toward the window, trying not to make a sound. I peeked through the blinds, and the motion light flicked on. There was a man standing just outside the trees. He was tall, hooded. His face was hidden, but he wasn't moving. Just standing there, watching the house. My heart was pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. I stayed at the window for a few seconds, trying to figure out what he was doing. Then the light timed out. Darkness. I backed away from the window and grabbed my phone. I called 911 and whispered that someone was in my backyard just standing there. The dispatcher told me to stay calm, stay hidden, and that officers were on their way. I sat on the floor, completely still. Bishop was still growling, now pacing. Then the light came on again. I looked out. He was closer, maybe 10 feet from the back door now, just at the edge of the deck, and he was holding something. I couldn't tell what it was. Maybe a crowbar, a stick, a bat. My chest got tight. I didn't know if I was going to pass out or throw up. I crouched behind the bed, trying to keep Bishop quiet. Then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the sliding glass door. I whispered to the dispatcher, "He's at the door. He's knocking." She told me the police were pulling onto my street. Just hang on. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just sat there, heart racing, listening to my dog bark like his life depended on it. A minute later, I saw red and blue lights flashing through the front window. But when the officers got to the backyard, the man was gone. They searched the woods with flashlights, even brought in a K9 unit to sniff around. Nothing. No tracks, no signs of tampering or forced entry. Just gone. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just sat in the living room with a kitchen knife and Bishop on my lap. The next morning, one of the officers came back, and he asked if I had any security footage. That's when I remembered. I had installed a camera over the back door a few months ago. It wasn't connected to Wi-Fi, just recorded to an SD card. So I took it down, popped the card into my laptop, and started going through the footage. That's when I saw something that really made my skin crawl. At exactly 12:40 a.m., about 20 minutes before I saw him, the camera caught something moving through the woods. Not an animal, a flashlight, just a faint beam bobbing between the trees. Then at 1:13 a.m., the man stepped out of the woods. Slowly, calmly. He walked up to the edge of the grass and just stared at the house, at my window. He stood there for almost 2 full minutes. Then out of his coat pocket, he pulled out binoculars. He was watching me, closely, intentionally. That night wasn't random. The police officer leaned over and watched the video. I'll never forget what he said. Quiet, calm, dead serious. This guy's been planning something. He's probably been out here more than once. You just caught him this time. They never found him. No leads, no prints, no one matching the description. I didn't sleep for days. Within 2 weeks, I put my house up for rent. I just had to get away from those woods. A couple of days later, I found a nice small apartment. My house now a rental. But here's the part that still messes with me. A few days after I moved out, the new tenant called. She said she kept hearing noises in the woods at night. And once, when she let her dog out, she found footprints all around the deck area. I never told her what happened. To this day, even though I'm in an apartment, I keep all my curtains closed at night. And I never ever ignore strange little things. An open gate, a moved trash can, a motion light that flicks on for no reason. Because sometimes it's not paranoia, it's a warning. And I still wonder how many nights he was out there, just standing in the dark, before I ever saw him and what his plans were. If this story messed with your head, imagine what's coming next. Comment your favorite part and hit that subscribe button to stay locked in with Sights of Horror, where true terror lives.